Greetings from Frederick, Maryland, and welcome to another episode of Desh or Diaspora. Our topic today is titled Narendra Modi, India's Fatal Attraction. First, a quote from Hermann Goring, Hitler's number two Nazi sidekick. He said, and I quote, "It is always a simple matter to drag the people along, whether it is a democracy or a fascist dictatorship or a parliament or a communist dictatorship. Voice or no voice, the people can always be brought to the bidding of the leaders. That is easy." End quote. Girilal Jain, the late, much reviled, much admired former editor of the Times of India, once made this observation about India's soul and its search for truth. He wrote, "Gandhiji alone," I'm quoting him, "Gandhiji alone had the perspicacity to recognize that India's soul responds to the embodiments of dharma. India longs for the truth, and that longing is enshrined permanently in our national slogan, Satyamev Jayate. Truth alone will triumph." End quote. Girilal Jain was no big fan of Gandhi. He was just using Gandhi to make a point which is elaborated further in his thoughts about Hindu rule in India. Truth is the next great frontier for India. And it is in that arena where I plan to continue to challenge and stake my claim in these weekly episodes of Desh or Diaspora. India must prove its national slogan is true. Satyamev Jayate. Truth alone will triumph. So let me start without any delay by saying India is currently living a lie. It is unrecognizable today as the land of Mahatma Gandhi and his philosophy of non-violence. India has turned feral, savage under Narendra Modi's BJP rule. Now, going back to 2007, when many Indians had started boasting that India was going to be the next superpower, the well-known columnist, author, and historian Ramachandra Guha poked fun at their ideas, their grand ideas. Nonetheless, at the time, he was still a cheerleader for India, not for the Indian economy, but for other things. Guha had praised India's democracy cautiously and its cultural and religious pluralism exuberantly. India at the time had a Sikh Prime Minister, Manmohan Singh, who had been sworn in by a Muslim president. India's currency notes carried their denomination in 17 different languages. Indeed, 17 different scripts. All of these things seemed to Ramachandra Guha an emphatic vindication of the ideals of the founders of the Indian Republic. In a recent article, Guha wrote, "Back in 2007, crude boosterism and anticipations of global greatness for India were unwarranted. But a quiet, understated pride in India's not insubstantial achievements since independence perhaps was not. And he goes on to add, now in August 2020, there is no India story of any sort anymore. Even before COVID-19 hit our shores, India's economy was in shambles. Our democracy is widely seen as corrupt and corroded. Our minorities frightened and insecure. In 2005, I wrote an article titled, How is a Democracy Subverted? At the time, the military-backed fundamentalist regime was in power in Iran, and I wondered if the RSS strategists were observing the developments in Iran to consider how they could pull off something similar in India. I know it was a bit far-fetched, but the Rashtriya Swayam Sevak Sangh, as the RSS is known, could be described as the alter ego of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC. In fact, RSS chief Mohan Bhagwat said in an address delivered in Bihar's Muzaffarpur on 11 February 2018 that, quote unquote, if the need arises and the Constitution permits, it will take 6 months to prepare the Indian army, but the RSS Swayam Sevaks, the foot soldiers of the RSS, will be ready in 3 days. What did the RSS chief mean by that? What will Bhagwat do with his army of RSS foot soldiers that he says will be ready for action, presumably, in 3 days? After BJP NDA rule from 1998 to 2004, the Congress had just returned to power, and I was pretty sure that we had not seen the last of the BJP after they went from only 2 seats in the Lok Sabha in 1984 to a formidable political force that they became. I speculated whether the RSS, that is operating behind the scenes of the BJP, would easily sacrifice a few sacred cows to see the Iran situation replicated in India. Now, strange things happen in politics, and I really had no desire to play the prophet. Looking back, though, it seems I was in fact quite prophetic at the time. Jihadis had just attacked Ayodhya on July 5th, 2005, and I asked, do Indians need to be wary of our democracy being compromised? It happened when Indira Gandhi imposed emergency rule in 1975. Few Indians should be surprised if India's private armies, like the RSS, have a plan to make a Nazi-like bid for absolute power in the country at any cost. Opportune situations like the attack on Ayodhya or the attack on Parliament are what certain groups would use to justify such action. In 2004, if you recall, Islamists in Europe succeeded in changing the democratic government of Spain with a single attack when they blew up a train there, killing nearly 200 people. In 1984, India experienced a genocide of Sikhs in Delhi that consolidated Congress rule under Rajiv Gandhi. In 2003, the Godhra in Gujarat pogrom of Muslims propelled Narendra Modi's ascent to leadership. It culminated with BJP sweeping victories in 2014 and 2019, bringing them back to power. Since then, they've been using a steady, what I call hand pump technique to maintain religious tension. You know, the hand pump technique to maintain religious tension and polarize India. It is clearly seen in the dramatic increase of violence against minorities. Violence against Christians, too, is sporadic but ongoing. But Muslims are the main target. Since 2019, with the unilateral and unconstitutional revocation of Article 370 in Kashmir, the proposed nationwide implementation of the National Register for Citizens and the passing of the Citizenship Amendment Act. And lately, they've been promoting the idea of love jihad. The pathetic medieval mendicants of the Sangh Parivar believe that Indians will continue to prefer religious hysteria, which is not even remotely connected to India's regeneration and progress. The RSS BJP caricature of the beliefs of Indians is surely the last acceptable form of denigration of Indian culture, especially for thinking Indians who long for the truth. Their extreme religious posturing has already sabotaged India's gains and will soon make it the laughingstock of the world. Sadly, our piously deluded masses, unable to see how religion is being easily manipulated for political ends, continue to swallow Hindutva's poison, hook, line, and sinker. I will see you again next week.